Hello and welcome back to Mate's Tottenham blog. Today I'm going to be going through a bit of the latest breaking news that has come out of Tottenham, or not breaking news, but a bit of the latest news that's come out of Tottenham over the last 3 or 4 days. So as you can probably tell by the thumbnail, I'm going to be discussing Jan Vertonghen and the whole situation regarding his exclusion from the matchday squad against Aston Villa on Saturday. I'm also going to be talking about Christian Eriksen. There's still a lot of doubt surrounding his future at the club, and I think there's a load of different things that we need to look at with regards to what's going on with Real Madrid, with Tottenham, with him personally, and all these different things that would suggest that perhaps he could be staying at the club. I'll be getting a bit more into that later. And I'm also going to be talking about Paulo Dybala. Now I know a lot of people won't want to hear about this, it's outside of the transfer window, but I've been asked a lot over the last few days what's going on with Dybala and is it a possibility for us to sign him in January. So I'm going to be going through again a few of the different sort of aspects of that would suggest whether he is or he isn't going to be a target for Tottenham in January. Now, before I go on any further, for those watching on the live stream replay, I'm running a Facebook group at the moment. I'm going to leave a link to that in the description below. I'm also running a fantasy football league at the moment. It's only 1 week in, so if you do still want to join that, there'll be a link to that in the description below as well, plus the code to join the league, which is 8MTEKC. So for anyone who's interested in joining that, please go ahead. It's right down below in the description, and you can join that. We can get going and have a good league season ahead. Now the people at the top of the league, I think they're at about 100 points at the moment, so they've had a great start. And it will be hard to catch up, but look, it's good fun having that fantasy football league. So make sure to go down and join that. Now I'm also going to be doing another giveaway pretty soon. So if you do want to know about that, make sure to keep up with the channel. And we'll try to get that going as soon as we possibly can. So, to begin, we're going to talk about Jan Vertonghen. Now, I'm sure we all know that Jan Vertonghen was left out of the matchday squad against Aston Villa on Saturday. It was something that some people were expecting. There have been a few reports on Friday that might happen. Hi, Tottenham Reese joining the stream here. There were a few reports that might happen. There's one I saw on Friday, which I didn't really pay much attention to it. It said there was a dispute with regards to a new contract for him, and for that reason he'd be left out of the matchday squad. Now, I didn't believe that then, and even though he was left out of the squad, I don't believe that now. He's a player who, he's been at Tottenham for so long, and there is only a year left on his contract, which not a lot of people are aware of, because there's just not that much speculation about his future. So I don't believe that for a second, but it is interesting that he was left out of the squad. Now, the reason Pochettino gave for this was he just wasn't ready to start the season, and he did miss the game against, was it Inter Milan, or he was injured in that game or something, but there was something at the end of pre-season there. But yeah, Pochettino saying he was just someone who wasn't ready to join the matchday squad, and he picks the players that are ready to play, and Vertonghen wasn't one of them. Now, Vertonghen did do an interview last week. I saw an article on football.london, which is kind of about his contract situation at the moment. And basically what the article says is Jan Vertonghen has refused to be drawn on whether or not he will sign a new contract at Tottenham. The Belgian defender has just 1 year to run on his current deal, the same as former Ajax teammates Christian Eriksen and Toby Alderweireld. Now obviously Eriksen and Alderweireld, we've heard about that a lot more. There's been so much speculation about their future. Both players were expected to leave this summer, but thankfully they are still at the club for now. The article goes on to say there's been plenty of speculation over the future of his two teammates, but Vertonghen has always maintained that he is happy at Spurs. However, he has refused to comment on whether or not he will put pen to paper on a new deal to commit his future to the North Londoners. Asked whether he'd sat down to discuss with Spurs to discuss a new deal, Vertonghen said, "I just want to focus on this year. I know I've got 1 year left, so lots of questions will be asked, like now. I've said it before, I'm very happy at the club. The support has been great for me, and the manager has improved me a lot and has a lot of confidence in me, and I feel very, very good physically. I'm not sure what's going to happen this year. I can only say that I'm happy where I'm at, and I feel the support from the manager and my teammates and the supporters." So it's relatively reassuring comments there from Vertonghen that a contract isn't his main priority, but it's for the right reasons. Like, he doesn't feel like he needs to commit his future to the club on paper because he feels personally that his future is at the club. So I would say that is quite reassuring. That, I mean, look, he's happy at Tottenham, and we can't really ask for much more than that. Now, as I said, Pochettino said the reason that he was left out of the squad, it was the same as what Sky Sports said in the build-up to the game, that it was just a decision to leave him out. There was no arguments behind it. There was no contract dispute. There was no injury or anything like that. It was just solely a decision to leave him out. Now, there was another article from football.london that suggested his Vertonghen and Pochettino clash quite a bit in training, but it's not a bad thing. Basically, what this article is saying is that Pochettino enjoys the clashes he has with some of his players, and Jan Vertonghen is one of them. So there's another article here from Football.London that says Pochettino likes to exert his authority over the squad and remind all of the players that it is about the collective rather than the individuals. And Pochettino admitted last year that he and Vertonghen do argue in training a lot, but that's no bad thing. The Argentine enjoys the back and forth with players who challenge him to push them and everyone even further. With Kane, a similar positive challenge for Pochettino. So it's good that it's not like the players are just in train and listen to every word he says. They're putting forward their opinions and they're having arguments, but they're good ones. It's outlining here Vertonghen and Kane as the two who do that the most. It is true that we clash a lot in training because Jan is clever and always has an argument and a reason why. But in the end, I appreciate a lot of his efforts in giving the team what we expect from him. So it's that's not something I knew last year when Pochettino said that about Vertonghen. But I think straight away all these rumors about Vertonghen and a dispute at the club or an argument with Pochettino and all these things, I think this immediately gets rid of those theories, and it simply was a footballing decision to leave Vertonghen out of the squad. Which, look, it did come as a shock to us all, and at some stage it did look like it was going to cost us. That first goal, you can kind of see it was the lack of chemistry between Alderweireld and Sanchez that did play a big part in that. Alderweireld, from a goal kick, he was way up in almost a right back position, which kind of left Sanchez in no man's land, and then Danny Rose to mark two players. So there was a bit of a lack of connection there between the two of them that did lead to the first goal. So it looked like that Jan Vertonghen absence could lead to a potential defeat for us. But look, in the end it worked out, and you can't give out about a squad decision made in a game that we won. And Shamir Jalani here saying maybe resting him for Man City, which could also be something. He may have picked up a little knock towards the end of pre-season, so Pochettino could have been prioritising him for the game against City this Saturday. Now, another player that I wanted to talk about was Christian Eriksen. Look, we all know Eriksen had a fantastic game against Aston Villa on Saturday. He came on for the last 26 minutes and he completely transformed the game. He created more chances for teammates than anyone else, and he completely impacted that game. A big part in the first goal, his good corner and then the good cross afterwards. But his future is still in a bit of doubt. It still seems to be that Real Madrid are the team who are most likely to sign him this summer. Now, where Real Madrid are in terms of their transfers is that they're still in talks with Neymar, but that could potentially be off because Barcelona have today sent representatives to Paris to try and finalise a deal to sign Neymar from PSG. So Real Madrid could potentially see that deal fall through now. You'd imagine Neymar would prefer a return to Barcelona. And Shamir as well saying Eriksen talks with Juventus. These are unconfirmed reports. There's nothing official there. But see, those reports said Juventus have now approached Eriksen to sign him on a free transfer next summer, but that would be illegal. Juventus can't do that. They need to wait until the 1st of January because under the Bosman ruling, any player over the age of 23 can discuss a pre-contract with another team when there's 6 or less months left on his contract. And Eriksen, his contract ends the 1st of July next year, so there's still almost 11 months left on that deal. So Juventus legally cannot approach Christian Eriksen on a pre-contract. So I would think the rumours with Real Madrid are there's more to them basically. Real Madrid are also really close to signing Danny van de Beek from Ajax, and that seems like a deal that's done. They're just waiting on other ones to materialise before they announce it. Because you'd imagine if they do sign Neymar, they wouldn't have any money to sign anyone else. So with Barcelona now going back in for Neymar, I think they could confirm Van de Beek very soon, and then they'll have to go back and decide if they want Paul Pogba or Christian Eriksen. So that's where we could see this develop over the next couple of weeks. Now, with regards to Eriksen's new contract, according to All Things Spurs, he's in advanced negotiations with the club about a new contract. Wages have been agreed, and it's going to be a 4-year deal. But where the discrepancies in the negotiations are at the moment is with regards to a release clause. So apparently Christian Eriksen wants a £50 million release clause, but Daniel Levy is looking closer to £80 million. Now that $50 million that Eriksen wants would kind of suggest what I've been saying all along, that any contract that he would sign would purely be to add value when we sell him in the future. And while we could get $50 million for him now, it doesn't look like we will. So he's kind of looking to get that in the future. And it does seem like eventually the release clause will go closer to Daniel Levy's valuation, and we could end up getting 60-70 million for Eriksen next season. Which look isn't ideal for a player of his quality, but it's better to let him go for that much instead of letting him go for free, obviously. So unfortunately it does look like Christian Eriksen's time is coming to an end, and I've seen a lot of fans do a U-turn about him. They've been saying all summer, no, he's useless. He hasn't done anything for us over the last 2 years. Then all of a sudden, he's one good half an hour performance, and those same fans are saying we need to keep him. Levy's an idiot if he doesn't. So it's the same old things really with fans changing their minds very, very often. But it does look like it's at most a year left for Christian Eriksen's time at Tottenham, unfortunately. Now Joshua Humphreys about the City game is saying, imagine Kyle Walker-Peters versus Sterling. And it is a pretty scary prospect. I mean, any defender against the likes of Sterling and Aguero, Jesus, Bernardo Silva, that City team, any defender would be scary. But with someone as inexperienced as Kyle Walker-Peters, we could really struggle against City on Saturday. And Tottenham Reese asking, would Lo Celso play? And Joshua as well saying, Lo Celso looks very sharp from what I've seen, very, very quick. And I think I agree with Andreas. It might be too early for Lo Celso. We might see a sub appearance from him this weekend and maybe a start against Newcastle in a much easier game to get him into the swing of things. But I would be surprised if we see him start against Man City. Now, of course, we are still missing Heung-min Son, Ryan Sessegnon and Dele Alli, so we may be forced to put him on the bench if that's what Pochettino needs to do. But I would be really surprised if we see him start. And Reece asking, when will Lo Celso make his debut? Look, it could be this Saturday, but his starting one would more than likely be at earliest next week against Newcastle, or we could potentially see it the week after when we play Arsenal at the Emirates. Now Thomas Gibbons is saying, I think Lo Celso will replace Eriksen. I don't think that was the idea when he was brought in, because we were looking to get more than one attacking midfielder, and it always felt as though Lo Celso was a player coming in independent of Eriksen's future, and then someone like Bruno Fernandes or Paulo Dybala could be a replacement for Christian Eriksen. And look, we were so close to getting Dybala to replace Eriksen, and it would be much less of a blow to let Eriksen go. Obviously, if we brought in Dybala, and I see Delboy here saying, if we give Juventus Eriksen this window after Dybala, we have been embarrassed. Now, there's been a lot of people asking me over the last few days about whether or not we could go back in for Paulo Dybala in January, and it seems like, unfortunately, Dybala could be forced out of Juventus this summer, which obviously means we can't sign him and it will be a European team. Now, I think it's important to look at Neymar's situation at the moment when trying to figure out where Dybala will be, because, as I said, Barcelona have sent representatives to Paris to try and finalise a deal for Neymar, and PSG are one of the teams who were interested in Dybala earlier in the summer. So I think a Neymar departure would really pave the way for Paulo Dybala to go to PSG, and immediately that kills any hope we had of signing him. Now, the other team that we're spoken about are Inter Milan. Inter have, of course, signed Romelu Lukaku in the last week or so. So any deal to bring Dybala to Inter Milan would probably be a player swap deal, which isn't out of the question because Juventus were interested in signing Mauro Icardi from Inter Milan, and Antonio Conte wants to let Icardi go. So it's still a very, very big possibility that Juventus and Inter Milan would just do a straight swap for Dybala and Icardi, and again, that would be our hopes gone. Now, Maurizio Sarri has said in the last few days that Paulo Dybala could be one of the foreign players left out of Inter Milan's Champions League squad. So a lot of Tottenham fans are looking at that and thinking, well, that's good, we sign him in January and we have him for the Champions League because he's not cup tied. And I see Delboy here saying, even if he stays at Juventus until January, by then he may have made it back into the team and be in favour with Sarri, plus we won't even be able to use him in the CL. Now, as I said, he will be left out. He might be left out of the Champions League squad, but that doesn't mean he won't be cup tied. Alistair Gold did one of his Q&As this morning and he was speaking about this. There was one sentence that it was a bit painful to read, to be honest. It said, if it wasn't for the image rights, Dybala would be wearing a Tottenham jersey right now, which is it's pretty tough to see. Like, a player of his quality, he wanted to join Tottenham and he had basically joined Tottenham bar that one little agreement that needed to be done, and of course that then gave Juventus the time to pull out of the deal. So it's kind of annoying that they didn't come up with the idea sooner to sort out the image rights at a later deal. But look, it's done now. We obviously can't sign him this summer. But Alistair Gold was saying, regardless of whether or not Dybala is in the Juventus Champions League squad this season, UEFA have changed the rules around a bit. So even if he's in that squad, if he joins us mid-season, he still can't play in the Champions League. Now, I'm not too sure how that works, but I imagine it is because both teams are in the Champions League. He's going to be cup tied in a different way rather than having played in the competition already. And this is coming from Alistair Gold, so I would believe that. And he was also saying, in an ideal world, Tottenham would now be negotiating a deal for Dybala and try to complete it throughout the winter in order to sign him in January. So, I mean, it is a possibility to get this deal done over the next couple of weeks, over the next couple of months, but he won't be a Tottenham player until January. So I wouldn't say all hope is gone yet, but the chances of signing him, I would say, are very, very slim. And unfortunately, it does look like he will end up at PSG or Inter Milan. I was leaning a bit towards PSG this summer, which, look, it's really frustrating. And as Andre said, it's a shame about Dybala. He would have been the cherry on the cake, which is so true. I mean, you only have to look at his stats, the player he is, the teams he plays with. He's a world class player, and he could have been that player to bring us on to the next level. But unfortunately, it just doesn't look like that will happen. It seems like he's done, and Tottenham re-signing Dybala would have been the cake on the cake. Yeah, it looks like that's done. I can't see us signing him in January at all, unfortunately. And with regards to the other two players, again, it looks like Vertonghen will be staying. Eriksen probably gone next summer at the latest, which leaves us in a difficult position in that attacking midfield area. Obviously bringing in Lo Celso and Sessegnon, who seems to be a signing for that area, given that Danny Rose has stayed and Ben Davies has signed a new contract. It does seem like Sessegnon has been brought in as a more attacking player rather than a fullback. But we definitely do need to invest there in the next year or so. I can't see us having a big January window. We don't usually have a big one. I mean, I know we signed Lucas Moura January the year before last, but yeah, it just doesn't feel like we will have a big January window, and we could be waiting until next summer to sign one of those players. Thomas saying, I think we'll play a 4-2-3-1 against City probably. Lloris, Walker Peters, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Rose, Ndombele, Sissoko, Lucas, Eriksen, Lo Celso against Kane. And prediction is a 1-1 draw. And he can see us as a title contender. And he seems to be a Newcastle fan, which is a big compliment coming from another team. And he sees us as a title contender. And Jose Mourinho making his debut on Sky Sports yesterday as an official pundit. He said he was asked about what teams he can see winning the Premier League. And he said there was 4 there, Man City, Tottenham, Liverpool and Man City's B team, which most people were looking at the funny side of that. But me, I was looking at a manager of his calibre, the amount of success he's had, especially in England, the fact that he sees us as genuine title contenders, kind of tells you all you need to know. We could really be in a race this season. Unfortunately, I don't see us winning that race, but look, anything is possible with the team we have at the moment. And like the fact that we did so well to turn that around against Villa, and I know it's only Aston Villa, it's a promoted team, but in a game that really looked like it was getting away from us, that they kept going, and ultimately it was a stroke of genius that got us back into it. It was a fantastic finish from Ndombele, but we still got that goal and then pushed on to get the next 2. So we're in a really good position with our squad this season, but I just don't think we will. I don't think it will be a title winning season for us. And I see Joe here asking, who would you sign next year? I think the 2 positions we need to focus on, because of the players that could be leaving and the players that have already left, I suppose, will be an attacking midfielder and a right back. And I see Reese here asking about Husai, and I think he could probably be the best option for us at the moment in the right back position. I know a lot of other people want Youssef Attal from Nice, and he wouldn't be a bad signing, but personally I would prioritise Elseid Husai from Napoli. In the attacking midfield position, again, in an ideal world, it will be Paulo Dybala, preferably in January, but I don't know. Now, JKTT here saying, I think Dybala will stay at Juventus and not go to PSG or Inter Milan, and I think that would depend on whether or not he's included in that Champions League squad. But if we could sign him next year, that would be ideal. I think we need another big summer next year, because this one, I mean, it was a good summer. We spent over £100 million, but it wasn't up to the level that we expected, so I think we will see another summer like this next year. And if I had to pick, say, 3 players to bring in, I'd pick, if Dybala is still at Juventus, I think we should go back in for him. If not, I'll go for Bruno Fernandes. Probably Elseid Husai as a right back. And we would need a centre back, with Alderweireld more than likely leaving. But I don't know what ones will be available. And like the only one I can think of that would improve our squad at the moment would probably be Kalidou Koulibaly from Napoli. But I just don't know if that is a realistic one. So I think there might be a few top centre backs around Europe who are maybe forced out of a team this year, or who just want to leave, that we could look into signing next summer. But yeah, I would say an attacking midfielder, a right back and a centre back next summer would be ideal. Delboy saying, the good thing with the Man City game is it's kind of a free hit. How was that comment's gone? We go there, try and get something, but if we lose or get smashed, it's not the end of the world, as Plastic FC are so overpowered. I mean, which is true. I mean, we're not going to see another meltdown in the fan base if we do lose against Man City. We were unlucky when we went there last year after knocking them out in the Champions League. We only lost by 1-0. We had a few chances to get back into that one, but yeah, I mean, if we lose, no one's going to be overly upset about it. It's playing probably one of the best teams in English history. Now, Thomas, the Newcastle fan, is saying, as a Newcastle fan, please pray for my club. It is run by bank owners and we need better owners. We are a big club and Mike Ashley is ruining us. And yeah, we can all see that from outside the club. The fans do deserve a lot better. And I mean, we see a lot of Tottenham fans complaining about Daniel Levy, saying he's just not good for the club. But you have to look into what Mike Ashley is doing in Newcastle and realise we are in a much better position than a lot of other teams out there. Reece saying, I think we will sign Dybala in January. Andrea saying, I think from now on Spurs will always be in a position to win trophies, better than just winning the occasional one, which is great. Riley is saying, do you think Eriksen will sign a new contract? I've been saying this for a few weeks now. I do think he will sign a new contract, but I don't think it will be one to keep him at the club. I think it will just be solely to add value to him when we do sell him. Now, as I was saying a while ago, in case you missed it, all things Spurs are claiming that Eriksen is in advanced talks to sign a new contract. The wages are sorted. It'll be about £200,000, put him on par with Kane. It'll be a 4-year deal, but they want a release clause in the contract. Now, Eriksen is looking for about £50 million, which you can tell by that it's just him trying to get out of the club as quickly as possible. But Daniel Levy is holding out for about £80 million. Now, all things Spurs came back about an hour after that and said it is looking like it will be on the higher end of that, and we could see him about £70 million release clause in the contract. So I think he will sign a new contract, but he will leave over the next year or so. Philip saying, I recommend Kai Havertz, but Spurs made no move. Now, Kai Havertz is a player who, he's still at Bayer Leverkusen, which to be honest surprises me a bit, because he's attracting a lot of attention from teams around Europe. He's a young German attacking midfielder, and his stats for the last few seasons are absolutely insane. And he's playing in a Bayer Leverkusen team who started really poorly last season, so didn't have the best year. I think they finished mid-table in the Bundesliga. But Kai Havertz is an exceptional footballer, and he's one I think who would fit really well into the Tottenham team, because he's technically gifted. I'd say similarly to Eriksen, he has the passing, the shooting, the set pieces, and he has an added bit of skill and pace. I'm not sure how he is on the defensive side of things in terms of that high press and stuff, but he is an exceptional footballer and he could potentially be a fantastic signing for Tottenham. And Tarek saying, I would love Kai Havertz, but that's not going to happen. He'll be too expensive. Now, I can't imagine he'd be any more than Paulo Dybala, because Dybala is a much better, much bigger player who I'm sure more teams will be interested in. So I can't imagine Havertz would be too much. And as well, playing with Bayer Leverkusen, they are one of those teams that make good players and sell them on. So I can't imagine they'd be looking for too much for him. And Louis saying Havertz would be perfect in a front four of Kane, Son, Havertz and Lucas, which would be exceptional. And even then you're leaving out the likes of Lo Celso and Lamela and Sessegnon. So we do have a really strong team. M40W saying Husai is worse than Trippier, Attal or Aarons are way better. Now, Aarons is someone who really impressed me in that game for Norwich at the weekend last Friday, and I know they lost 4-1 to Liverpool, but he's a really good player, and he's someone I watched a lot in the Championship last year. I mean, we're linked to him earlier in the window, but it looked like Pochettino was looking for more proven players at a higher level. But I think Aarons could be a great signing for us in the future if we're not going to go for the likes of Husai or Attal. But as Reece said, Husai is better, he has more experience, which is fair. But I think, look, at the end of the day, whichever one Pochettino goes for is the best option, because he just knows this a whole lot better than us. But personally, right now, I would probably choose Husai, because he is playing with Napoli, who are at a much higher level than Nice or Norwich. I see Jasper saying, I turn on notifications and they never tell me you're live streaming. There is a problem with YouTube notifications at the moment. I think they are trying to sort them out, but it's whatever way the YouTube algorithm works. It's really strange. So notifications aren't the best at the moment, but they are looking to fix them. I saw Jimmy Page there saying 50 million is too cheap for Eriksen, and Delboy saying, why doesn't Eriksen just let us sell him for his value? We've literally made him the player he is today, building him up from nobody, and he won't even let us get a full price for him. 70 million, not enough. I think Eriksen realises that teams know he wants to leave, so they won't be willing to pay that much money for him, because ultimately Tottenham will need to sell pretty soon if they want to get any money back for him. So I think he realises that other teams won't be paying that much for him, so he wants that cheap release clause just to get out as quickly as he can. Thomas Gibbons saying, gotta be honest with you, mate, go sign Husai, Upamecano, Havertz and Dybala next summer. That would be a great summer. I mean, that would definitely put us up on a level where we will be winning trophies. But I just don't know if it is a realistic one. Havertz and Dybala will cost upwards of £100 million alone. Jimmy Page saying, how much was the loan to buy deal for Lo Celso for this season? And Jay Spurs is saying 55 million plus 5 million in add-ons. Now that was coming from Sky Sports, but it seems that all the different outlets aside from Sky Sports have the same report, which is different to that. And this is from All Things Spurs as well, who I trust a lot. Apparently, it's a £15 million loan this summer, with £40 million to be paid next summer, and then £5 million in add-ons. So basically, what that does is, for Tottenham, it freed up money to try and pursue the Dybala deal, because at the time that was still a likely one. So that £50 million would be a cheap one for Lo Celso this summer. Then we could go put that money into Dybala and getting that image rights deal over the line. But also what it does is it got a lot more money for Real Betis. They had a clause in the contract when they signed Lo Celso from PSG that they need to give 20% of the profits they made on his sale back to PSG. So by doing it this way, essentially they're selling him for £40 million, which is obviously 15 million cheaper than what they would have got in £55 million. So they have to give less money to PSG basically. So at the time it helped out a lot for both teams, but it turns out for us it does nothing really. We're just having him for a year for a bit cheaper, and it seems like more of a structured deal for us rather than allowing us to sign a better player. Espen Anderson saying, anyone else left with the feeling of almost once again after the window? So close to being perfect. If Eriksen now leaves, then it's a mediocre one. And yeah, that's what I've been saying. We were promised a lot more than we got in this window. And I don't think we can be too upset, because Daniel Levy really did try to get those deals over the line, and it was Juventus who pulled out of the Dybala one. And those people getting annoyed that Lo Celso and Sessegnon were left till deadline day, it wouldn't have made any bit of a difference. Because of Sessegnon's injury, he wouldn't have taken part in any of pre-season. And Lo Celso, with his having just returned from the Copa America, he didn't take part in any of Real Betis' pre-season, so I can't imagine it would have been any different at Tottenham. So I don't think we can blame Levy too much for this window. But yeah, it did feel like we were going to get a lot more. That Dybala one, again, we keep coming back to it, that was the big one, and that was the one that would have taken us to that next level, and unfortunately it couldn't materialise. Delboy saying, it's honestly embarrassing for Eriksen right now. He's literally begging Madrid to come and buy him all summer when he is so cheap. They still don't even want him, but instead want an unknown Van de Beek. Yeah, I suppose that's a good point. It doesn't seem like... Now, I think the way Zinedine Zidane is looking at this, he sees Eriksen, because he's getting closer to the end of his career, he sees him kind of dropping into a deeper defensive role, whereas Van de Beek obviously is only 21, 22. He has a good 6 or 7 years left in that attacking role. So because of Eriksen's age, it does look like Zinedine Zidane sees him more as a player who's like Toni Kroos or Luka Modric or Casemiro, who ultimately he doesn't need. He wants a more attacking player. So it seems like it's because of Eriksen's age more than anything that Zinedine Zidane doesn't want him. Philip Woodruff is saying, Danny Olmo should have been signed because of his pace and skill. Young player who wants to play for the jersey and not for the money. Olmo was a player I wanted us to sign. I know he's playing in the Croatian league with Dinamo Zagreb, but his stats were absolutely insane, and it gets to a point in your stats where no matter where you're playing they are impressive, and he seemed to have hit that level. And I'd say the same with Bruno Fernandes in the Liga NOS, but I don't think Olmo was ever a real target for the club. I think it was more just media rumours and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be too upset with the club for not signing him, but I do think he would have been a good signing. Thomas Gibbons saying, your thoughts on signing Max Aarons and Pukki as a backup for Kane, also thoughts on John McGinn. Max Aarons, as I said, is a player I'd love to see us sign. He's young and he has a lot of potential, but I don't think he is someone that Pochettino would go for now, because he's looking more towards the kind of buying the players at the level we want them at rather than buying them young and trying to develop them. Timo Pukki, I wouldn't buy him as a backup for Kane. He's obviously sensational in the Championship for Norwich last year, and he got off to a good start scoring against Liverpool on Friday, but I don't think he is a sort of consistent Premier League striker, and I think we would be better off having Troy Parrott or getting maybe Fernando Llorente back. And John McGinn, again, he's a great player, got off to a good start in the Premier League, but I think he is more of a Championship player. I don't think he is at the level where he can be one of the top players in the Premier League, so I wouldn't sign John McGinn. Stephen Flynn asking, what's going on with Jan Vertonghen? He's underrated, 8 out of 10 every week. As I was saying at the start of the video, it genuinely feels like Vertonghen being left out of that squad was just a random decision. It doesn't feel like there's anything to it with regards to a contract dispute, falling out with Pochettino, an injury or anything like that. It seems like he was just left out, as Pochettino said, because there are other players who were just more ready for the game than him. So it doesn't seem like there's anything there at all. There was an article from Football.London that I referenced as well. It's that basically Jan Vertonghen and Harry Kane are players who they clash with Pochettino a lot in training, but there's nothing to it. It's the article here from Football.London. It was Alistair Gold who wrote this. Pochettino admitted last year that he and Vertonghen do argue a lot in training, but that it's no bad thing. The Argentine enjoys the back and forth with players who challenge him to push them and everyone further, with Kane a similar positive challenge for Pochettino. And there's a quote from Poch says, "It is true that we clash a lot in training because Jan is clever and is always has an argument and a reason why. But in the end, I appreciate a lot his efforts in giving the team what we expect from him." So there is a great relationship there between Poch and Vertonghen. Although there are clashes, it's good. So I think I wouldn't be worried at all about Vertonghen's future at the club. To was saying, who do you think are the 5 biggest clubs in the world right now? Well, the biggest clubs, I mean, number 1 would have to be Manchester United, Barcelona, Real Madrid, maybe Liverpool, and I suppose the 5th one would have to be Bayern Munich. But there's where I'd say the biggest clubs are. But I think biggest clubs is different to the best teams. The best teams at the moment, I'd say Man City are number 1. I think it's hard to say that they're not. They're just ridiculous in the football that they play. I know they haven't quite made it on the European front yet, but I do feel like it's only a matter of time, and it could actually be this year that we see them lift the Champions League. Barcelona will probably have to be second. They're only getting stronger now at the moment, and despite that difficult season last year, I think Real Madrid would have to be there as well because of the investments they've made and the players that they could end up signing this summer. I'd say it'd be hard not to put Liverpool in there as well because obviously winning the Champions League last year and finishing 97 points in the league. And the 5th one, I don't know, it's tough because there are those teams around Europe like Bayern Munich, PSG, Juventus. They're all massive in their country and they're great teams in their country, but they don't really have what it takes to get onto that European front. So maybe because of Cristiano Ronaldo, I'd probably have to say Juventus, but I think that 5th place is definitely an arguable one. Jay Spurs is saying, is Lo Celso supposed to be an Eriksen replacement or addition? It felt like he was going to be brought in regardless of Eriksen's future, and that someone like Dybala or Fernandes will be a replacement for Eriksen. Obviously that didn't materialise, but yeah, I think Lo Celso was an addition. Joshua asking, what's your starting 11 versus Man City? I'm not really sure at the moment. I think we'll find out a lot more about the team news later in the week and whether or not Dele Alli will be back, if Lo Celso will be looking to be in the squad. But if I imagine it would be very, very similar to what we saw against Aston Villa. I think the defence will be the same. Maybe Vertonghen in for Sanchez, but I don't know if he'd be thrown straight into the starting team against Villa. And Dembele Winks. Now, I think we might actually revert to that 4-2-3-1, which maybe would see Sissoko drop out of the team and having Dembele and Winks in the middle. And then I'd love to see Eriksen, Lo Celso and Lucas behind Kane, but I don't know if that is realistic at the moment. I see a few people here asking, MN and Mitch Ware asking about the Dybala. Basically, I've been asked a lot over the last few days what's going to be happening with Dybala, and the latest news from Juventus is that Maurizio Sarri is looking to leave him out of the UEFA Champions League squad for this season, because they have to include a certain amount of homegrown players, and obviously he doesn't fit into that category. So it looks like Dybala could be left out of the Champions League squad. Now, kind of the initial reaction from Tottenham fans to that was that it's great for us that if we sign him in January, he won't be cup tied and we can play him in the Champions League. But that's not the case. As Alistair Gold said, he was doing a Q&A this morning, he was saying there are new rules there, and whether or not Dybala actually plays in the Champions League, because it's a mid-season transfer, he still won't be able to play for us in the Champions League if we are still in it come that time of the year, and if we do sign him. So I think him being left out of that squad is only bad news for us, because it could just force through a move to either PSG or Inter. And I see Mitch Ware there saying about the Icardi Inter deal. That's something as well I mentioned earlier in the stream. Antonio Conte wants to get rid of Mauro Icardi and he wants to sign Dybala, and Juventus want Icardi, so there could be a swap deal on the cards there to see Dybala go to Inter Milan. Then the other possibility is with Barcelona having this morning sent representatives to Paris in order to finalise a deal for Neymar. If he leaves, I imagine PSG will go in for a player like Dybala to replace him. So fortunately it does look like Dybala will be forced out of Juventus this summer, and obviously we can't sign him, so I think that dream could be over. But look, we can't really rule it out yet. I mean, it is still a slight possibility, but I wouldn't be getting too excited about it now. Gurney is saying, will Vertonghen start against City? I don't think he will. I think it's just too early for him to be thrown straight into it in his first game of the season away to Manchester City. I think that would be too much of a step up. and with the form that Aguero and Jesus showed against West Ham, and they're just so sharp, I don't think it would be the best game for Vertonghen to start. Jay Spurs saying, why does Poch keep forcing the diamond midfield? And this is something that Pochettino actually himself sort of apologised for after the Aston Villa game. He said it was his tactics in the first half that kind of handed the first half to Aston Villa. And I imagine he was talking about that diamond midfield. It's just not working for us. It's just too narrow in the midfield and attacking spaces, putting way too much dependence on the fullbacks. And especially because we didn't invest in a right back, I don't think we're in a position where we can kind of use that system this season. I think we will have to stick with the 4-2-3-1. And maybe if we get a right back in January or next summer, we could then retry the diamond in midfield. But I don't think it is a possibility, and I myself am wondering why he keeps trying to force it. I think he will go for a lot more solidity against Manchester City, which would be a 4-2-3-1. So I think we will see a better performance there. But again, it's a really tough game going away to Manchester City, and it could be a very tough game. Joe saying Dybala will be cup tied in the Europa League as well, which I wasn't sure about, but I'll take your word for it. Del Boy asking, when does the Champions League draw take place? We'll just look it up quickly here. I know the qualifiers are still going on at the moment, but I think the Champions League does start. Is it late September? I think it begins. And so I imagine it would be the next couple of weeks we'd see that draw. The 29th of August, Thursday the 29th of August, so a little over 2 weeks, and we'll see that Champions League draw. Now, where we are in pot 2, I believe. I think we're in pot 2 at the moment, which I think we've only ever been as high as pot 3 recently. So basically what that means is we can only get one team from pot 1, and pot 1 consists of the Champions League winners, the Europa League winners, and the top 6 league winners in Europe. So basically what that is, it's the big 5 leagues and one extra league based on the coefficient standings, which is based on how well every country's teams do in the European competitions. So this season it is Russia who've gotten in there. So it's Zenit, PSG, Bayern, Juventus, City, Barcelona, Chelsea, and Liverpool. We get one of them, and then teams from pot 3 or 4 who aren't near that level. So we could see us another good Champions League run this season. Jimmy Page saying Pochettino's got to try new formations to make things less predictable against the top clubs, but playing against teams like Aston Villa, he should stick to what's been proven to work. Hotspur Daily, welcome to the stream, saying because the Dybala deal was only stopped due to image rights and not because of Dybala himself, is there a chance he turned down other teams in the hope we'd go back for him? That's actually a good question. I'm not too sure if he would. It did seem as though he had his heart set on a move to Tottenham, but I don't know if he would sacrifice 4 or 5 months of first team football, of Champions League football, to try and force a move through to a team who aren't going to win trophies, who aren't guaranteed to win trophies, I suppose. Like if he goes to PSG, he's going to win the league and the cup every year and have a chance at the Champions League. I don't know if he would be, if he's kind of that eager to get to Tottenham, that he would turn down other teams for a couple of months. But look, I mean, it's a possibility. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. Legend Gaming saying Tottenham are the best team ever, and he subbed. Thanks for subscribing. Don't forget to check out my recent videos. I did a lot on Aston Villa at the weekends. Welcome to the channel. Make sure to hit that notification bell as well so you get notifications when I upload and go live. Delboy saying pot 1, yes please. We're in pot 2, but pot 1 is the only kind of difficult teams we can get. Joshua Humphrey saying when's Delhi back? I'm not too sure. I don't think the club have said it officially yet, but when he picked up that injury, Pochettino said it would be a couple of weeks, and he's not sure if he will make it for the Man City game. I think it will be Thursday or Friday before we hear about that. But look, it wouldn't be the end of the world if he's not ready, but it obviously would be a boost if he is. JKTT saying, the way the PL transfer window is closed, can other teams in Europe swap players with Premier League clubs? I'm actually not too sure about that. I don't know, I don't think we can. Let's look it up here 1 second. Can Premier League swap players outside transfer window? Now, I know we can sign free agents, and the loan window closes as well, but I think the loan window opens up again on the 1st of September. Hotspur Daily saying they can swap, which I imagine will be the case, but I think there is a loan window that can open up soon, so we could potentially sign him on loan this before January. But yeah, I think I'd agree with Hotspur Daily. We can swap players. It was a very good point though, that could have been a possibility, but yeah, I can't imagine we would. Jimmy Page was saying, it was great to see Pot smiling again after the transfers and the win. He genuinely seems happy with the signings, which is quite a relief, to be honest. It was a bit worrying there for a while when he was making those comments about him not being in charge of transfers. He should change his job title. But yeah, it looks like he's happy with what's gone on in the window now. Tottenham Reese saying, imagine we get Barcelona and Inter in our group. Sure, we've had the group of death a few times now. Last year, Barcelona, Inter Milan and PSV, which is a very difficult group. And the year before, when we finished with 16 points, we had Real Madrid and Borussia Dortmund in there. I know we were a bit lucky to get that Cypriot team, whose name is not coming to me now. But, I mean, we're good enough for those groups of death. We've gone out with them in the last couple of years, so that wouldn't be the end of the world. And it seems to be the luck that we have in those draws. But, now Hotspur Daily saying, what's the loan window? It's not something that Premier League teams usually exercise. The specific periods depends on the league season cycle and are determined by the national football authorities. Now, maybe it is just for the EFL. I know there is a loan window that opens up after the transfer window closes, and it might only be a short thing. I'm not too sure what it is, to be honest. I just have heard of it in the past. I'll look it up and I'll let you know in my next live stream. But there is a loan window there for some teams, for some leagues. I don't know if the Premier League is in it, but I imagine they would be. Pineapple Cousin saying Perisic to Bayern confirmed. Dillboy saying, if Sanchez plays against City, you just know he's getting ripped. He's so aggressive in his challenges and rash in his decisions, such a liability. Jimmy Page saying, when are the groups announced? It's the 29th of August. The draw's on in Monaco. I imagine it would be the evening on the 29th of August, which is 2 weeks from Thursday. Barry saying, just as a point of construction for the channel, if you could boost the sound levels a bit, it would be great. So it is just these live streams that the sound seems to be a problem. I'm not sure what it is, if it's the software I'm using, but there's no way to boost the sound. I have invested in a mic, which I should be getting very soon, which would help the sound. You're saying trying to listen whilst working outside and can't hear well enough. It is just these live streams. There seems to be a problem, but I do have a mic on the way, which would help with those as soon as possible. Jay Spur is saying, do you think we have too much depth in midfield with Dyer and Wanyama getting less amount of games? No, it's definitely not possible to have too much depth, especially when it's players like Dyer and Wanyama who are injured quite a bit. They wouldn't be expecting to play every single game. I think we will see one of them leave before the end of the European window. Potentially Wanyama, he was being linked with Bournemouth for a while, but obviously that's over now with the window being closed. But Fenerbahce were another team who were apparently interested in him. So I think, unfortunately, we will see Wanyama leave before the end of the window. He was a player who was loved by the fans when he first came into the team, but unfortunately, with these injuries and the strength that we have on our team ahead of him now, it doesn't seem like he'll be there much longer. Cheers for that, Pars. I appreciate it. I see a few people there saying, who do you think will win the Champions League? Look, it's such a tough one to call. I mean, if anyone had called it last year, no one would have said Liverpool and Tottenham in the final. It's a really tough one to call, but if I had to say it now, I do think we might see City making that step up this season and winning the Champions League. Now, whether or not that would cost them domestically, I don't know, but I think we will see City at least making a really big push for it this season in the Champions League. By saying maybe Adobe Audition could help with live feedback if you're on PC. I'm actually using Streamlabs OBS on my phone. The camera on my laptop is very poor, so I can't use Adobe Audition. But it should be the next week or so I'll get that mic. Jimmy Page saying, is Aurier fit to play yet? I kind of hope he isn't in the starting lineup against City if he is. I don't know if he is. It seems to be very strange that it is a hand injury who's keeping him out for this long. I think he is back in training. But when it's a hand injury, imagine they can just put a cast on it and put him out in the pitch anyway. I don't know if... sorry, I'm seeing some reports here in the last day or so. This isn't something I knew about. Serge Aurier tells Tottenham teammates he wants to leave from 90 Mins. WhoScored.com saying Tottenham defender wants to move away. And Football Fancast saying Tottenham can't want away Serge Aurier to leave until January at least. So I hadn't seen this at all, but apparently Aurier wants to leave. But again, I think it's similar to Vertonghen. I wouldn't... Was he on the bench against Aston Villa? I mustn't have looked at the bench at all against Villa because I didn't even know Dyer was on it. So Aurier must be fit, but I think it's similar to Vertonghen. I don't think he will be thrown right into the deep end and making that first appearance against Manchester City. Obviously Foyth is still injured and suspended, so we won't see him. I think it will be Kyle Walker-Peters against them. which isn't the most exciting of prospects, but if it's what we have to do, So Del was saying he must have been on the bench. I didn't know that at all. J Spurs saying Kyle Walker-Peters is going to have the hardest game of his life on Saturday. Hotspur Daily saying the streets will never forget the Wanyama-Dembele partnership. My God, that was terrifying for opposing teams. Remember in N'Golo Kante, the season they won the league with Chelsea, he was saying the toughest midfield he played against was Wanyama and Dembele when we beat them at White Hart Lane. Philip saying, gentlemen and fellow supporters, speed, skill and vision makes winning teams in the Premier League. We have to invest in players that have pace. See what United did to Chelsea. No, we did invest in players who have pace. I mean, Sessegnon is a very quick player, and Lo Celso has a lot more pace than the majority of attacking midfielders do. And Jack Clarke, I know, as a player for the future, he's incredible on the ball. He's I wouldn't say he's quite as pacey as he might be, but he does have he's just really quick feet and stuff like that. So he's a player for the future like that. And as J Spurs says, we have Lucas Moura, we have Son, we do have pace in the team. Tottenham Re saying, I like how the transfer window was shut and you're still making streams about transfers. Well, look, I mean, it's still open in the European window. It's still something people want to know about with the potential departures of Christian Eriksen. I mean, Toby Alderweireld still isn't guaranteed to be at the club for the season. So it is the English window that's closed, but there can still be players leaving. Barry saying, with the training facilities we have, we need to utilise them as effectively as possible. And that is true, and it seems like those facilities were used to try and kind of convince Ndombele and Lo Celso to join Tottenham. So they are being used, I suppose, to that extent. I was going to take a few more questions here from the chat if you want to get them in. Barry saying, we need more of a culture of that cold, cool power in the moments when it counts. And that is what we've been lacking really under Pochettino, just having that kind of edge to get things over the line when it really, really matters. We kind of missed out on. Tottenham Re saying, Lucas Moura is on the form of his life. He wasn't great against Villa, but he did certainly finish last season exceptional form, getting that hat-trick against Huddersfield and obviously that Champions League semi-final. No one will ever forget that. Hotspur Daily saying Toby will be a huge loss, but Vertonghen and Sanchez is still a quality partnership, which is very true. They're two very good players. And J Spurs saying we always concede early. That's a problem. It is a problem. We did that a lot last season, but we do have a great record in pulling games back. I think we have the most wins from losing positions at half time in the Premier League, something like 38. Last one here, Lucas still has so much more potential, which makes him even more exciting, which is very true. I don't think he's hit the highest of his levels at Tottenham just yet. So look, that is all I have time for this stream today. If you haven't already subscribed, I do a lot of these interactive live streams, and I also do sort of in-depth Premier League match reviews and previews. So if you want to get some more of that content, please hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. If you have enjoyed this stream, please hit the like button. We're only on 11 likes now, so please, if you did enjoy it, hit that like button. Don't forget to join my Facebook group and my Fantasy Football League, which I'll leave in the description down below after I publish this video. That's all I have time for today. Thanks for watching.